The galaxy stretched endlessly, a canvas of stars and swirling nebulae. In one small corner of this vast universe, a Zorathian scout ship hovered silently in the void. Its sleek, angular design reflected light from a nearby star, giving it an almost predatory appearance. Inside, Commander Xylan leaned forward in his chair, his six-limbed body clicking softly against the control panel as he analyzed the strange object on their scanners. It had appeared without warning, a massive, blocky structure drifting through space like a piece of forgotten debris. At first glance, it seemed primitive, its surface scarred with dents and burn marks that suggested countless battles. The energy readings were weak, almost laughable compared to the advanced reactors powering Zorathian vessels. To Xylan and his crew, it looked like nothing more than a relic of some lesser species, perhaps even a derelict warship, abandoned by its creators. "Scan complete," chirped Vera, the ship's science officer, her voice laced with amusement. "This thing is ancient. Slow-moving, inefficient propulsion system, minimal shielding. Whoever built it must have been desperate just to leave orbit." Xylan's mandibles twitched in agreement. Primitive, indeed. Still, we should investigate further. If there's any salvageable technology, it could prove useful. He turned to his communications officer, Kale. "Send a standard hail. Let's see if anyone responds." Kale nodded and entered the command into the console. A signal pulsed out into the darkness, carrying a simple message in multiple known languages. "Identify yourself or prepare to be boarded." Minutes passed, then hours. No response came from the mysterious vessel. Frustration began to creep into the Zorathian crew. Such silence was unusual, especially for civilizations they deemed inferior. Most species would either panic or grovel when faced with the might of the Zorathian Empire. "They're ignoring us," Vera asked, her tone incredulous. "Or perhaps they're too stupid to understand." Xylan shook his head. "No. Something feels off about this. Run another scan. Focus on deeper systems, life support, power cores, anything hidden beneath those crude exteriors." As Vera worked, her claws dancing over holographic displays, she paused suddenly. Her eyes widened slightly. "Commander, I'm detecting faint traces of cloaked subsystems within the vessel. They're masked well, but they're there, some kind of secondary layer beneath the primary hull." Xylan straightened, intrigued now. "Cloaking? On such a primitive ship? That doesn't make sense, unless—" His thoughts trailed off as realization dawned. Perhaps this wasn't a derelict after all. Perhaps it was bait. Meanwhile, aboard the human warship Aegis, Captain Elena Voss stood silently on the bridge, watching the tactical display. Her sharp green eyes flicked between the readouts, noting every move the alien craft made. She had seen enough engagements to recognize curiosity when she saw it, and right now, the aliens were curious. "Lieutenant Harris," she said calmly, addressing her tactical officer, "status report." Harris glanced up from his station. "Their scans are probing deeper, ma'am. Looks like they're trying to crack our decoy systems. So far, so good. They haven't found anything critical yet." Eleanor nodded, her expression unreadable. The Aegis was no ordinary warship. Beneath its battered exterior lay layers of deception, fake weaknesses, dummy systems, and enough firepower to level a moon if needed. Humanity had learned long ago that survival in the cosmos meant never showing your true strength until absolutely necessary. "Keep playing dumb," Elena ordered. "Let them think we're sitting ducks, and prep the quantum disruptors. If they try anything funny, we'll give them something to regret." Her crew moved with practiced efficiency, each member knowing their role. Despite the tension in the air, there was a quiet confidence among them. They had faced worse odds before, and triumphed. Back on the Zorathian scout ship, Commander Xylan studied the latest scan results. The anomalies were growing clearer, hinting at technologies far beyond what the ship's exterior suggested. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. Was this truly a primitive vessel, or was it a trap? "Vera," he said slowly, "run one. Final sweep. If this ship is hiding something dangerous, I want to know before we act." But deep down, Xylan couldn't shake the feeling that they had already made a grave mistake. Somewhere in the cold emptiness of space, humanity waited patiently, ready to show the universe why underestimating Earth was always a fatal error. Commander Xylan's claws tapped impatiently against the edge of his command chair as the Zorathian scout ship continued its analysis of the mysterious human warship. The silence from the other vessel was unnerving, like staring into the void and waiting for it to blink back. Vera, the science officer, worked furiously at her station, her glowing eyes scanning line after line of data that streamed across her holographic interface. "Commander," she said finally, her voice tinged with both fascination and unease, "the anomalies are undeniable. Beneath the surface layers there are traces of advanced shielding systems, far more sophisticated than anything we've encountered in this sector, and their power core, it's emitting faint fluctuations, almost like it's deliberately dampened." Xylan leaned forward, his mandibles twitching slightly. "Dampened? You mean they're hiding their true capabilities?" "Precisely," Vera replied. "Everything about this ship screams deception. The dents, the weak energy signatures, it's all too perfect, too obvious. Whoever these beings are, they want us to underestimate them." Kale, the communications officer, chimed in hesitantly. "But why? Why not respond to our hail? If they're advanced enough to hide such technology, surely they understand universal protocols." Xylan frowned, his thoughts racing. This encounter was unlike any he had faced before. Most species, when confronted by the Zorathian Empire, either cowered or attempted futile resistance, but this silence felt calculated, deliberate. It made him uneasy. "Perhaps they're testing us," Xylan muttered aloud. "Or perhaps they're waiting for us to make a move. Either way, we can't afford to act rashly." On board the Aegis, Captain Elena Voss watched the alien ship carefully through her tactical display. Her sharp gaze caught every detail. Their positioning, the frequency of their scans, even the subtle movements of their weapons turrets. She knew exactly what they were doing, probing, analyzing, trying to find a weakness. "They're getting bolder," Lieutenant Harris reported from his station, his tone calm but alert. "Their scanning beams are penetrating deeper into our decoy systems. So far they haven't breached the primary layer, but it's only a matter of time before they start piecing things together." Elena nodded slowly, her mind working through the possibilities. The Zorathians were smart. They wouldn't fall for the ruse forever. But that didn't mean humanity couldn't use their arrogance against them. "Hold steady," she instructed. "Let them dig deeper. Keep feeding them just enough information to keep them curious, but nothing that gives away the game. And prep the countermeasures. If they try to board us or fire on us, I want to be ready." Her crew responded instantly, each member focused on their task. The tension in the air was palpable, but no one showed fear. They trusted Elena implicitly, knowing she had led them through worse situations. Humanity's survival depended on patience, precision, and the element of surprise, and Elena excelled at all three. Back on the Zorathian scout ship, Commander Xylan grew increasingly restless. His instincts screamed that something was wrong, but pride held him back. To retreat now, without determining the nature of this strange vessel, would be seen as weakness, a flaw unacceptable among the ranks of the Zorathian military. "Vera," he ordered, "attempt a remote intrusion. Access their central database if possible. Let's see what secrets they're hiding." Vera hesitated, her antennae flickering nervously. "Commander, given the sophistication of their cloaking systems, I'd advise caution. If they're deliberately masking their tech, attempting to hack them could trigger defensive measures." Xylan waved off her concerns. "We're the Zorathian Empire. Our hacking algorithms are unmatched. What could they possibly have that we can't handle?" With a reluctant nod, Vera initiated the intrusion protocol. Lines of code flooded the screen, as the Zorathian computers began probing the Aegis's systems. For several tense minutes, everything seemed fine. The connection was established, and data began flowing back to the scout ship. Then, suddenly, alarms blared throughout the Zorathian vessel. "Commander!" Vera shouted, her voice rising in panic. "They've detected the intrusion! Their systems are retaliating! They've unleashed some kind of counter-program!" Xylan bolted upright, his mandibles snapping shut in shock. "What do you mean, counter-program?" "It's erasing our access codes and flooding our systems with false data," Vera explained, her claws flying over the controls in a desperate attempt to sever the connection. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's learning, adapting, faster than our firewalls can block it. The bridge erupted into chaos as the Zorathian crew scrambled to contain the breach. Lights flickered, consoles sparked, and warning klaxons wailed relentlessly. For the first time in recent memory, the mighty Zorathians found themselves outmatched, not by brute force but by sheer ingenuity. On the Aegis, Captain Eleanor allowed herself a small, satisfied smile as she watched the aliens flounder. "Lieutenant Harris," she said coolly, "let's give them a little reminder of who they're dealing with. Activate the external speakers and broadcast our greeting message." Harris grinned, understanding immediately. "Aye, Captain. Sending now." Moments later, a deep, synthesized voice echoed across the void, carrying a simple yet chilling message. "You scanned us. Now you regret it." Outside, the Aegis's hull shimmered faintly as its hidden systems came online, revealing glimpses of the true power beneath its battered exterior. The Zorathians stared in stunned silence, realizing too late that they had underestimated their opponent, and in that moment, humanity proved once again that appearances could be dangerously deceiving. The synthesized voice echoed through the void, reverberating in the ears of every Zorathian aboard their scout ship. Commander Xylan froze, his mandibles clenching tightly as the message sank in. "You scanned us. Now you regret it." It was a taunt, a warning, and worse, an admission that the humans had been playing them from the start. Vera frantically worked to stabilize their systems, her claws moving with desperate speed across the console. The counter-program unleashed by the human warship had infiltrated nearly every subsystem, corrupting data streams and locking out critical functions. Even basic navigation controls were glitching, leaving the scout ship vulnerable. "Commander!" she shouted over the alarms. "Their program is rewriting our firewalls faster than we can repair them. If we don't cut the connection completely, they'll take full control of our ship." Xylan growled low in his throat, his pride warring with his survival instincts. He hated retreating. It went against everything he stood for. But staying would mean certain disaster. With a reluctant snarl, he barked, "Sever all connections, shut down non-essential systems if you have to, but get us out of this." Vera nodded and began isolating key systems, cutting off the flow of corrupted data. Slowly, painfully, the chaos on the bridge began to subside. Lights flickered back to life, consoles stabilized, and the klaxons fell silent. But the damage had already been done. The scout ship's sensors were scrambled, its weapons offline and its engines operating at half capacity. Meanwhile, aboard the Aegis, Captain Elena Voss watched the alien vessel with steely resolve. The tactical display showed the Zorathians scrambling to recover, their movements erratic and panicked. She allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction before turning to her crew. "Lieutenant Harris," she said calmly. "Status report?" Harris glanced up from his station. "Their systems are still compromised, ma'am. They won't be able to fight, or flee effectively for at least another 10 minutes. Whatever those hackers did to their systems, it bought us plenty of time." Elena nodded, her expression unreadable. "Good. Let's not waste it. Target their propulsion systems with a low yield. EMP burst. Disable them without destroying them. We need answers more than we need a kill." "Aye, Captain," Harris replied, inputting the commands into the weapons array. Moments later, a pulse of energy surged outward from the Aegis, striking the Zorathian scout ship like an invisible hammer. The alien vessel shuddered violently, its remaining systems sputtering and dying one by one. On board the scout ship, the impact sent the Zorathian crew sprawling. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the bridge in dim red hues. Commander Xylan struggled to his feet, his mind racing. For the first time in his career, he felt fear, not just for himself but for his entire crew. Whoever these humans were, they weren't just clever, they were ruthless. "Damage report," he snapped, his voice sharp despite the situation. Kyle, the communications officer, stumbled to his station and began assessing the damage. "Propulsion is offline, shields are gone, and life support is barely holding steady. We're dead in the water, Commander." Xylan clenched his fists, his frustration boiling over. How could this have happened? How could such a primitive-looking vessel turn the tables so completely? His eyes narrowed as he turned to face his crew. "Prepare a distress signal. If we're going down, we'll make sure reinforcements know who did this." But before Cale could act, the comm channel crackled to life. A new voice filled the bridge, not synthesized this time, but human, clear, calm, and commanding. "This is Captain Elena Voss of the United Earth Fleet warship Aegis. You've violated neutral space and attempted unauthorized access to our systems. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared. Resist, and you leave me no choice but to eliminate you." Xylan's mandibles twitched in disbelief. These humans dared to issue demands. To him? To the mighty Zorathian Empire? Fury burned within him, but reason held him back. Their ship was crippled, their options limited. Fighting back now would only result in their destruction. Slowly, reluctantly, Xylan activated the comm system. "This is Commander Xylan of the Zorathian scout ship Velocis. Your actions here today will not go unanswered, but for now, we stand down." Helena listened intently to the alien commander's words, her gaze unwavering. She knew better than to trust threats from a cornered opponent. Still, she couldn't deny the thrill of victory coursing through her veins. Humanity had faced countless foes in the stars, but few had underestimated them quite so spectacularly. "Very wise decision, Commander," she replied coolly. "My team will board your vessel shortly to assess the situation. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. Do I make myself clear?" Xylan hesitated, then growled softly. "Crystal." As the transmission ended, Elena turned to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Kane. "Prep the boarding party. Full combat gear. Assume hostiles until proven otherwise. And keep the main guns trained on their ship. One wrong move and they're vapor." Kane saluted sharply. "Understood, Captain. Boarding party ready in 5 minutes." While preparations continued aboard the Aegis, tension mounted on both ships. The Zorathians, humiliated and defeated, braced themselves for the inevitable invasion. Every member of the crew gripped their weapons tightly, though none dared to fire unless ordered. They were warriors, yes, but even warriors knew when the odds were insurmountable. Back on the Aegis, Elena took a moment to reflect. This encounter wasn't just about survival. It was about proving humanity's place among the stars. By letting the Zorathians live, she hoped to send a message. Earth wasn't a species to be trifled with. Its people weren't conquerors, but neither were they pushovers. As the boarding party prepared to cross the void between ships, Elena stared at the tactical display one last time. The Zorathian scout ship floated helplessly in space, its once proud silhouette now reduced to a shadow of itself. "Oh, you messed with the wrong species," she murmured under her breath. Then louder, she addressed her crew. "Let's show them exactly what happens when someone regrets underestimating humanity." And with that, the next phase of the mission began. A phase that would determine whether diplomacy or destruction awaited the Zorathians. The boarding party assembled in the airlock of the Aegis, their armor gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. Each member moved with precision, checking weapons, securing oxygen tanks, and ensuring communication links were functioning flawlessly. Captain Elena Voss stood at the forefront, her presence commanding, yet calm. She wore a sleek tactical suit, equipped with advanced sensors and defensive plating, her helmet tucked under one arm as she gave final instructions. "Listen up," she began, her voice steady and clear. "This isn't just about neutralizing a threat, it's about gathering intelligence. These aliens underestimated us once. Let's make sure they don't get another chance. Stick to protocol. No unnecessary aggression unless provoked. Our goal is containment, not annihilation." Lieutenant Marcus Kane nodded, his face set in grim determination. As second-in-command, he led the strike team flanked by 6 elite Marines trained for close-quarters combat in zero gravity. Behind them stood 2 scientists, Dr. Priya Patel and Dr. Liam Chen, tasked with analyzing alien technology and assessing potential risks. "Understood, Captain," Marcus replied, his tone firm. "We'll secure the ship, detain survivors, and gather whatever data we can. But if things go south, they won't," Eleanor interrupted sharply. "Stay disciplined. Remember, we're representing Earth here. Every action reflects on humanity. Her gaze swept over the group, lingering on each face. "Let's move out." With that, the airlock hissed open, and the boarding party stepped into the cold expanse of space. Magnetic boots clamped onto the outer hull of the Zorathian scout ship, allowing them to traverse its jagged surface with ease. The vessel loomed above them like a wounded beast, its sleek design marred by scorch marks from the EMP burst. Despite its damaged state, it radiated an aura of menace, a reminder that even defeated foes could still pose danger. Inside the Zorathian ship, Commander Xylan paced the bridge, his mandibles snapping in frustration. His crew had barricaded, themselves behind makeshift defenses, weapons drawn but unsteady hands betraying their fear. The humans were coming, that much was certain, but what would happen next remained a mystery. "Commander," Kyle ventured cautiously, "shouldn't we surrender fully, hand over our logs, show them we mean no further harm?" Xylan turned sharply, his glowing eyes narrowing. "And risk revealing classified information?" "No. We hold our ground until reinforcements arrive. If these humans want answers, they'll have to pry them from our cold, dead claws." Kyle swallowed nervously but said nothing more. He knew better than to argue when Xylan's pride was on the line. Back outside, the human boarding party reached the main access hatch. Using cutting tools designed to slice through nearly any material, they breached the hull within minutes. Sparks flew as metal parted, exposing the darkened interior beyond. The silence inside was oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of failing systems. Marcus signaled for caution, raising a hand to halt the group. "Flashlights on. Stay sharp. Hostiles may be waiting inside." One by one, beams of light pierced the darkness, illuminating narrow corridors lined with smooth metallic walls. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the edges, pulsing rhythmically as though alive. The air smelled acrid, tinged with burnt circuitry and something else, something alien. Elena stepped forward, her helmet now secured. Through the visor, her green eyes scanned the area methodically. "Spread out, secure this section first. Scientists, stay close. I want you protected at all times." The team fanned out, moving silently through the corridor. Every shadow seemed to shift menacingly, every sound amplified tenfold. Tension hung thick in the air, palpable even through their suits. Suddenly, a low growl echoed ahead. Marcus raised, a fist, signaling everyone to freeze. From around a corner emerged 3 Zorathians, their insectoid bodies bristling with weapons. Their large, multifaceted eyes glinted dangerously in the dim light. "Hold your fire," Marcus ordered, raising his weapon, but keeping it pointed downward. "We're here to negotiate." The lead Zorathian snarled, his claws flexing. "Negotiate? You crippled our ship, invaded our territory, and now expect us to bow down? Humans are as arrogant as they are weak." Before tensions could escalate further, Helena stepped forward, her voice cutting through the stalemate like a blade. "Lower your weapons now, or do you really think you're in any position to fight?" Her words carried authority, leaving no room for argument. Reluctantly, the Zorathians complied, though their expressions betrayed simmering resentment. Marcus motioned for 2 Marines to escort them back toward the bridge, while the rest of the team pressed onward. As they moved deeper into the ship, the environment grew increasingly hostile. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows, and the temperature dropped noticeably. Dr. Patel knelt beside a console, her gloved fingers working deftly to interface with the alien systems. "These symbols, they're some kind of language," she murmured, excitement creeping into her voice. "If I can decode them, we might be able to access their database." Dr. Chen joined her, scanning the area with handheld equipment. "Careful. Don't trigger anything without clearing it with command first." Meanwhile, Elena and Marcus reached the bridge. There they found Commander Xylan standing defiantly, surrounded by what remained of his crew. His posture was rigid, his claws clenched tightly at his sides. "You've made your point," he spat bitterly. "What do you want from us?" Elena removed her helmet, letting her piercing gaze lock onto his. "Answers. Who are you? Why were you scanning? How a ship? And what does the Zorathian Empire know about Earth?" Xylan hesitated, his mandibles twitching. For a moment, it seemed he might refuse to answer, but then, realizing resistance was futile, He sighed heavily. "We are explorers," he admitted, grudgingly. "Our empire spans dozens of star systems. When we detected your primitive vessel, we assumed you posed no threat. Clearly, we were mistaken." Elena arched an eyebrow. "Primitive? Is that why your ship is floating dead in space while mine remains fully operational?" Xylan's glare hardened, but he said nothing. "Here's how this works," Elena continued, stepping closer. "You cooperate, share your knowledge, and maybe, just maybe, we let you live. Refuse and I'll leave you stranded here as a warning to others who dare underestimate humanity." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Xylan's face. Defeat wasn't just bitter, it was humiliating. Yet survival outweighed pride, especially when reinforcements were likely days away. "Fine," he relented finally. "We'll cooperate. But mark my words, Captain Voss, the Zorathian Empire does not forgive insults lightly." Elena smiled faintly, a glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes. "Good choice, Commander. Let's see if we can avoid making enemies today." With the immediate threat neutralized, the boarding party began the painstaking process of extracting data, securing prisoners and documenting everything they encountered. By the time they returned to the Aegis, the Zorathian scout ship was little more than a powerless hulk adrift in the void. But as Elena gazed out at the stars, she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was merely the beginning. Somewhere, out there, the Zorathian Empire awaited, and they would not forget the name of the species that dared to stand against them. Back aboard the Aegis, Captain Elena Voss stood in the warship's briefing room, her arms crossed as she reviewed the data extracted from the Zorathian scout ship. Around her, holographic displays flickered with alien symbols and schematics, their meanings slowly being deciphered by Dr. Priya Patel and Dr. Liam Chen. The two scientists worked tirelessly, their faces illuminated by the glow of their tablets as they pieced together fragments of information. "So far, we've identified basic navigation logs, communication protocols, and some references to their empire's structure," Priya explained, her voice tinged with both excitement and caution. "But much of it is still encrypted. Their language is complex." Liam nodded, adding, "It'll take time to fully decode everything. From what we can tell, though, the Zorathians are expansionists. They've colonized dozens of systems using advanced terraforming technology, and they're not shy about taking what they want." Elena frowned, absorbing the implications. Expansionist empires rarely tolerated resistance, especially from smaller or less advanced species. Humanity had encountered similar threats before, but none quite so technologically advanced or arrogant as the Zorathians. "What about their military capabilities?" she asked, turning her sharp gaze toward Marcus Kane, who had joined the briefing. He carried a datapad filled with reports from the boarding party. "Based on what we saw firsthand, their weapons are energy-based, similar to ours but more refined," Marcus replied. "Their shielding tech is impressive too, though not invincible. That EMP burst took them down hard, which means they have vulnerabilities if we hit them right." Elena tapped her chin thoughtfully. "Good. Knowledge is power, but knowledge alone won't stop them from retaliating once word gets back to their empire. We need leverage, a way to ensure they think twice before coming after us again." At that moment, Commander Xylan was escorted into the room under heavy guard. His insectoid frame loomed awkwardly in the cramped space, his mandibles twitching with barely contained anger. Despite his defeat, he carried himself with an air of defiance, refusing to meet anyone's eyes directly. "Commander," Elena greeted him coolly, stepping forward. "I trust your accommodations were tolerable." Xylan snarled softly, his glowing eyes narrowing. "You humans are clever, I'll give you that. But don't mistake this momentary victory for anything more than luck. You've made a grave error crossing the Zorathian Empire." Elena smirked faintly, unimpressed by his bravado. "Luck? No, Commander. This was preparation meeting opportunity. Now, let's skip the theatrics. You're in no position to negotiate. But I'm willing to offer you a deal." "A deal?" Xylan repeated incredulously. "What could you possibly offer me?" "Your life," Elena said simply, her tone leaving no room for argument, "and the lives of your crew. In exchange, you provide us with everything we need to understand your people. their strengths, weaknesses, and intentions toward Earth. Refuse, and I'll leave your ship adrift here as a monument to hubris." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Xylan's antennae quivered slightly, betraying his internal struggle. Pride warred with survival instinct, and ultimately, survival won out. "Fine," he growled reluctantly. "Ask your questions. But know this. I will not betray my empire outright. There are limits to how far I'll go." "That's fair," Elena acknowledged, gesturing for him to sit. She activated a recording device, ensuring every word would be documented. "Let's start with something simple. What exactly were you doing in this sector?" Xylan hesitated, then spoke. "We were mapping potential resources. Our empire is always seeking new territories to expand into. When we detected your ship, we assumed it belonged to a lesser species, one that wouldn't pose a threat. And yet you scanned us without." "To mission," Elena pressed. "Why?" "To assess your value or lack thereof," Xylan admitted. "If you'd been primitive, we might have ignored you entirely. If you'd shown promise, perhaps we would have attempted contact through proper channels. But instead, you found us dangerous," Elena finished for him. "Interesting. Tell me, Commander, how large is your fleet? How many ships like yours are there?" Xylan's mandibles clicked irritably. "Thousands. Tens of thousands, spread across hundreds of colonies. Your little trick today won't stop us forever." Elena leaned back, considering his words carefully. A fleet of that size was daunting but not insurmountable, not if humanity played its cards right. "Fair enough," she said finally. "Now, onto something more critical. Does the Zorathian Empire already know about Earth? Have they encountered humans before?" Xylan shook his head. "No. This is the first time. Your presence here is unexpected. Most intelligent species we encounter are either subservient or easily conquered. You are neither?" Elena allowed herself a small smile at that. It confirmed what she'd suspected all along. Humanity's greatest asset was unpredictability. By staying hidden until now, Earth had retained the element of surprise, an advantage she intended to exploit. "One last question," she said, leaning forward again. "If reinforcements arrive looking for you, what will they do when they find your ship floating powerless in space?" Xylan's expression darkened. "They'll assume the worst, and they'll come for revenge." "Then let's make sure they don't," Elena countered smoothly. "Here's the deal. We repair your ship just enough to get you home. In return, you deliver a message to your superiors. Tell them that Earth is protected territory. Any further incursions will result in consequences far worse than what you experienced today." Xylan stared at her, incredulous. "You expect me to act as your messenger? To warn my own kind against attacking you?" "Yes," Elena replied firmly. "Because if you don't, next time we meet, it won't end with negotiations. It'll end with annihilation." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. For all his arrogance, Xylan understood the truth behind them. Humanity wasn't bluffing. They had proven that already. Reluctantly, he nodded. "Very well," he conceded. "I'll deliver your message. But mark my words, Captain Voss, this isn't over." "I didn't expect it to be," Elena said, rising to her feet. "Take him back to his ship. Prep the engineering team to stabilize their propulsion systems. Minimal repairs only. We're not giving them a fighting chance if they decide to double-cross us." As Xylan was led away, Elena turned to her crew. "This buys us time, but not much. We need to prepare for the possibility of war. Inform command immediately. They'll want to start fortifying key systems and rallying allies." Marcus stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Do you really think they'll listen to him, or will they see this as weakness?" "They'll listen," Elena replied confidently. "Fear is a powerful motivator. Today we showed them that humanity isn't a species to be trifled with. Whether they respect us or resent us, they'll remember this encounter." With that, she dismissed the group, leaving herself alone in the briefing room. Staring out at the stars, she felt a mixture of pride and unease. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage, but the spotlight came with risks. The Zorathians weren't gone, they were merely delayed, and when they returned, the stakes would be higher than ever. For now, though, Elena allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. Against overwhelming odds, humanity had stood firm and sent a clear message to the cosmos. Earth was not to be underestimated. The repairs to the Zorathian scout ship were completed in record time, thanks to the combined efforts of the Aegis's engineering team. Lieutenant Harris oversaw every step, ensuring that only the bare minimum necessary was done to make the alien vessel spaceworthy again. The propulsion systems were patched just enough to allow limited travel and basic life. Support functions were restored, but nothing more. Any attempt by the Zorathians to engage in combat would leave them vulnerable once more. As Commander Zealand boarded his ship alongside his surviving crew, Elena Voss stood on the observation deck of the Aegis, watching the aliens with a mixture of caution and resolve. She had given them a lifeline, but it came with strings attached. If the message wasn't delivered, or worse, if it was ignored, the galaxy could erupt into conflict far sooner than humanity was prepared for. Zealand paused at the airlock of his vessel, turning back to face Eleanor one final time. His glowing eyes locked onto hers through the thick glass of the observation window, radiating a mix of resentment and reluctant respect. Though no words passed between them, the unspoken understanding hung heavy in the air. This encounter was merely the prologue to a much larger story. Once the Zorathian ship disengaged from the docking bay and drifted away into the void, Elena turned sharply, her demeanor shifting instantly from contemplative to commanding. "Marcus," she called out over the comm system, "assemble the senior staff in the war room. We've got work to do." In the dimly lit war room, holographic displays projected maps of nearby star systems, potential Zorathian territories, and strategic choke points where Earth's forces might stage a defense. Around the table sat the core leadership of the Aegis, each member focused intently on the task ahead. "We don't have much time," Elena began without preamble, her voice cutting through the hum of activity. "Commander Zealand may deliver our warning, but we can't rely on diplomacy alone. The Zorathian Empire is vast, arrogant, and aggressive. They won't take kindly to being humiliated, even by us. So here's the plan. We prepare for war while buying ourselves as much time as possible." Dr. Priya Patel raised a hand hesitantly. "Captain, forgive me, but how exactly are we supposed to prepare for an empire that size? Their resources dwarf ours. Even if we rally all of Earth's fleets, we'd still be outnumbered." Elena nodded, acknowledging the grim reality. "You're right, we can't match them ship for ship or soldier for soldier, but we don't need to. What we lack in numbers, we'll make up for in innovation, strategy, and sheer determination. Our greatest weapon isn't brute force, it's intelligence." She gestured toward Dr. Liam Chen, who had been quietly analyzing the data recovered from the Zorathian ship. "Liam, what have you found so far?" The scientist adjusted his glasses, clearing his throat before speaking. "Their technology is advanced. Yes, but not infallible. For instance, their shields operate on a frequency-based modulation system. If we can disrupt those frequencies, we could render their defenses useless. Additionally, their energy weapons rely heavily on thermal dispersion. Overloading their cooling systems could cause catastrophic failures during combat." Eleanor smiled faintly, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Good. That gives us two clear advantages to exploit. Marcus, I want you to coordinate with engineering and weapons development. Start designing countermeasures based on Liam's findings. We'll also need new tactics, ways to use speed, stealth, and deception against them." Marcus nodded, jotting down notes furiously. "Understood. Anything else?" "Yes," Elena replied. "We reach out to our allies. Humanity isn't alone in the galaxy. There are other species who've clashed with the Zorathians or who fear their expansionist tendencies. If we present a united front, we stand a better chance of survival," Priya interjected, her tone thoughtful. "There's also the matter of propaganda. The Zorathians value dominance and control above all else. Humiliating them publicly, showing the galaxy that they're not invincible, could weaken their influence among neighboring civilizations." Elena arched an eyebrow, intrigued. "Explain." "If we release footage of today's encounter, edited carefully, of course, we can send a message to the entire galaxy, not just to the Zorathians, but to everyone else watching. Humanity isn't afraid to fight back, and we're clever enough to win. The idea sparked immediate interest around the table. It was risky, yes, but potentially devastating to the Zorathian reputation. In a universe governed by power dynamics, perception mattered almost as much as reality. "Make it happen," Elena ordered, "but keep it subtle. We don't want to provoke them prematurely. Let's let Xylan deliver his report first. Then, when the timing feels right, we strike, not with weapons, but with information." Over the next several days, the crew of the Aegis worked tirelessly to implement Elena's directives. New weapon systems were designed and tested, incorporating insights gleaned from the Zorathian tech. Tactical simulations ran non-stop in the holodeck, training the crew for every conceivable scenario. Meanwhile, diplomatic envoys reached out to neighboring species, forging tentative alliances and gathering intelligence on Zorathian movements. On the bridge, Elena spent hours poring over reports, her sharp eyes scanning for any sign of trouble. Every decision weighed heavily on her shoulders, but she refused to show weakness. Her crew looked to her for guidance, and she wouldn't let them down, not now, not ever. One evening, as the stars streaked past the viewport, Marcus approached her quietly. "Captain, permission to speak freely?" Elena glanced up, arching an eyebrow. "Always." He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Do you think we're ready? For whatever comes next, I mean. The Zorathians aren't going to stop after one loss. When they come back, and they will, they'll bring everything they've got." Elena leaned back in her chair, staring out at the endless expanse of space. "No, Marcus, we're not ready, not yet. But readiness isn't about perfection. It's about preparation. We've shown them that humanity isn't easy prey. Now, it's about making sure they remember that lesson." Her gaze hardened, reflecting the steel in her voice. "If they choose war, then we'll give them a war unlike anything they've ever seen. Because one thing is certain, humanity doesn't go down without a fight." As the Aegis continued its journey home, carrying vital intelligence and a newfound sense of purpose, the seeds of resistance were planted. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread of a small, unassuming species that had dared to stand against the mighty Zorathian Empire. And somewhere deep within the heart of the Empire, commanders and strategists watched the same footage Elena had released, their expressions darkening with fury. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived. And it was here to stay. Weeks had passed since the encounter with the Zorathians, and the ripple effects of that fateful day were spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. The footage Elena Voss had authorized for release, a carefully edited montage of the Aegis disabling the alien scout ship, had gone viral among interstellar communications networks. Species who once dismissed humanity as a minor footnote in galactic history now watched with fascination as Earth's resolve was laid bare. On dozens of worlds, debates raged about the implications of this newfound player on the cosmic stage. Some saw humanity as reckless upstarts, challenging an established order. Others viewed them as a beacon of hope against the oppressive dominance of empires like the Zorathians. For every species cowed by the Empire's might, there existed another willing to bet on humanity's ingenuity, and perhaps even ally themselves with Earth. But while the propaganda campaign worked its magic, Captain Elena Voss knew better than to rest on her laurels. Back at United Earth Fleet Command, she stood before a council of admirals presenting her report alongside detailed plans for humanity's defense. "The Zorathian Empire is vast," she began, addressing the room with unwavering confidence. "Their resources are nearly limitless, their technology formidable, and their arrogance unmatched. But they have one critical flaw. They underestimate their opponents. We exploited that flaw once, and we can do it again." Admiral Hayes, the commanding officer of the fleet, leaned forward, his weathered face etched with concern. "Captain, you've made your point clear, but let's not kid ourselves. This isn't just about winning battles, it's about survival. If they bring their full force to bear, how do we hold our ground?" Elena nodded, anticipating the question. "By being unpredictable, by hitting them where they least expect it, and forcing them to fight on our terms. So I propose dividing our forces into 3 key strategies: fortification, sabotage, and diplomacy." She activated a holographic display, projecting maps of nearby star systems and choke points. First, we fortify key locations along potential invasion routes. These will serve as staging grounds for counterattacks and safe havens for refugees, if things go south. Second, we launch covert operations to disrupt Zorathian supply lines and infrastructure. A crippled fleet is easier to defeat than one operating at full strength. And third, we strengthen alliances with neighboring species who share our concerns about Zorathian expansionism. Together, we form a coalition capable of standing toe-to-toe with them. The Admiral studied the projections thoughtfully, then glanced at the other officers around the table. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Though the plan was ambitious, it offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to level the playing field. "Very well," Admiral Hayes said finally. "You have command approval, Captain. Begin implementing your strategies immediately. And may God help us all if this doesn't work." Back aboard the Aegis, Elena wasted no time putting the plan into motion. Fortifications sprang up around key colonies and outposts, shielded by layers of defensive satellites and minefields. Covert teams infiltrated Zorathian-controlled territories, planting explosives near resource hubs and disrupting communication relays. Meanwhile, diplomatic envoys traveled far and wide, forging bonds with species eager to resist the Empire's tyranny. Yet despite these efforts, tension continued to mount. Reports trickled in from distant sectors of increased Zorathian activity, fleet movements, troop deployments, and heightened patrols. It was only a matter of time before they struck back. That moment came sooner than anyone expected. One evening, as the Aegis patrolled near the edge of human-controlled space, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Harris bolted upright, in his seat, staring at the sensor readouts in disbelief. "Captain!" he shouted, his voice urgent. "Multiple contacts incoming, over 24 ships, Zorathian signatures." Eleanor rushed to the bridge, her heart pounding but her mind razor-sharp. "Battle stations. Raise shields and prepare for evasive maneuvers. Marcus, get me a tactical overview." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a swarm of sleek, angular vessels advancing rapidly toward their position. They weren't alone. The nearest colony was within striking distance, and if the Zorathians breached its defenses, countless lives would be lost. "We're outnumbered," Marcus reported grimly. "But they're spread thin. If we can draw them away from the colony, we might buy enough time for reinforcements to arrive." Elena's jaw tightened. Sacrificing the Aegis wasn't ideal, but protecting civilians took priority. "Do it. Engage at maximum range and lure them deeper into open space. Use Hitandran tactics. Keep them guessing." The battle that followed was chaotic and brutal. The Aegis danced between enemy fire, its weapons blazing as it inflicted heavy damage on the pursuing fleet. Every shot counted, every maneuver mattered. Despite their numerical advantage, the Zorathians struggled to pin down the nimble human warship. Meanwhile, hidden among the stars, Allied forces mobilized. Ships from neighboring species joined the fray, ambushing the Zorathian flank and turning the tide of the engagement. Explosions lit up the void as the once unstoppable armada faltered under coordinated resistance. When the dust settled, the Zorathians retreated, leaving behind smoldering wreckage and shattered pride. Though the victory was costly, it proved something vital. Humanity wasn't alone. Together they could stand against even the mightiest foes. In the aftermath, Commander Xylan found himself summoned before the Zorathian High Council. His failure weighed heavily on him, but he spoke truthfully when questioned. "Humans are unlike any species we've encountered," he admitted. "They adapt quickly, think creatively, and refuse to yield. Underestimating them was our first mistake, and it cannot happen again." The council deliberated silently, their glowing eyes reflecting both anger and unease. For the first time in centuries, the Zorathian Empire faced a challenge it couldn't simply overwhelm with brute force. Across the galaxy, humanity celebrated cautiously. The war wasn't over, not yet, but a line had been drawn in the stars. Earth had declared itself a force to be reckoned with, and the universe was watching. As Elena gazed out at the infinite expanse of space, she felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. Humanity had taken its first steps into the galactic arena, proving that courage, ingenuity and unity could overcome even the greatest odds. And somewhere deep within the hearts of billions, a new mantra echoed. Never underestimate humanity.